Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns and Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Sam West, and today is another Martial Monday, in which we are going to be talking about the fighting style, Interception.
Whatcha? Blocked.
There you
Nailed it.
go.
Interception. Sorry. It's at least fighter paladin. It might be ranger. I'm checking right now. But it's relatively simple as to what it does. You have to be wielding a shield to use it. It says when a creature you can see hits a target other than you within 5 feet of you with an attack. So something else hits a creature that is not you within 5 feet of you. So like your buddy to 5 feet to your left or right. You then can use your reaction to reduce the damage the hit creature takes by a D10 plus your proficiency bonus. So you're a fighter, you've got a shield, you got a spear, you're stabbing things with said spear, your buddy rogue next to you gets clocked over the head with a great club by the ogre, you can use your reaction for interception to reduce the damage taken by a D10 plus proficiency bonus, which are probably going to be 2 in the early tiers. And then it does specify you must be wielding a shield. I'm sorry, you don't have to have a shield. You must be
Oh,
wielding a shield or a simpler martial weapon to use this reaction, which means basically every single character under the sun can use interception. For some reason, I just think of interception as like a shield thing to me, right? Like you're blocking the
yeah.
damage, but you can throw your sword out there, or it has to be a melee weapon, right? Please tell me it has to be. Because it'd be hilarious if you simpler martial weapon. You can use a
Simpler martial weapon.
if you got a bow in your main hand, throw it out there. Block the great sword. Reduce that incoming damage by a D10 plus damage. That's kind of funny. I am a big proponent of this fighting style. I think interception is underrated at most tables in the low tiers, and that's where it shines very brightly. As the
All
game
right,
continues going onward, it gets
I'm
quite a bit
sorry.
worse.
Before you go on, I want to clear one thing up. This isn't usable a certain number of times per rest or anything. This is just straight up. You can use it all the time
Yep,
as
it's a
long as you. All
reaction
right.
you have every round if you want it.
Oh, that is pretty cool then.
Mm-hmm.
So, like
And
against multiple attacks.
it consumes your reaction. So you can only use
Oh,
one
right,
reaction per
right,
round.
right. Okay.
And if you use that reaction to interception, you're reducing that damage 1d10, but you don't have a reaction to do anything else. You can't make another opportunity attack, you can't intercept
Right.
again, etc., etc. Yeah, this is just double checking. This is Paladin Fighter exclusive. This is not on the Ranger list, which is, bummer for Rangers. But for the fighters and Paladins out there, this is, I think, a very reasonable early tier option to play the defensive protector. I think reducing incoming damage by a D10 will often make other allies like your monks and things feel invincible while next to you. The predominant issue with it is it's not usable on yourself ever. Being unable to reduce incoming damage to you by the dice makes it so often you're just going to funnel monsters that attack you, and then this kind of stops feeling like a feature. This will be the kind of situation where you'll be in circumstances where you show the monsters you can use interception once, and they go, oh, okay, we just kill you first then. And then everyone piles onto the fighter instead of distributing their damage out like the DM probably had planned earlier. And then you get into situations where they're playing a lot more tactically, and that's probably negative for you. In the situations where you're against dumb enemies, or you're against mindless enemies, or you're against enemies that you still would rather funnel their damage to you than your monk buddy 5 feet to your left or right, this is pretty great. There are a lot of hurdles to using it effectively, and in play, I think you have to be at the specific tables that are running 3+ frontline characters for it to get value. But if you're at those tables, I would highly recommend it in the first 5-10 levels of the game.
All right. Why 3+? Why? I mean, like I said, we can only use it once around. Why not just you and your interception buddy fighting
So
side by side?
the reality of having D&D players stay that coordinated and next to each other consistently, I find to be challenging. The reason I like having multiple options is if my monk decides I'm going to go get that backline caster and then throws themselves off with their 50-foot run speed, and I can't keep up with them, and they want to do that, right? And they're not necessarily considering my options. It's nice to be able to go, okay, that's fine. I'll go cover the rogue. Oh, that's fine. I'll go cover the barbarian. Oh, that's fine. I'll go sit with the ranger somewhere, right? You having the flexibility of having multiple characters means this is going to be up more often. If there's ever a situation where it's just you and the rogue, just you and the barbarian, and the barbarian puts themselves somewhere and you're stuck somewhere else, this stops being a feature, and you want as open a window to use this as possible. It also comes down to the situation where if you are full frontline with some people doing a phalanx formation, right? Everyone makes the wall. If no one hits the barbarian, even though they attacked it twice, you can use it on the monk. And if no one hits the monk, you can use it on the barbarian, right? You get a little bit more flexibility to get it more consistently happening round to round. You are going to want to be using this every round for it to feel really, really good. That is going to require more than often just one other ally, I think, for it to really feel like it's online.
All right. Yeah. So D10 damage reduction. When does this stop being really impressive?
It's really impressive the second you get it, and it
Well,
only gets
when does
worse
it
from
stop?
there.
Yeah.
It as damage goes up, this obviously starts feeling worse, right? Reducing 30 damage by a d10 plus 6 isn't that as exciting as reducing, 10 damage by a d10 plus 2. There's a pretty huge difference in the actual amount of damage that, like, you're still taking a lot more damage in the upper tiers. Granted, you have more hit points to burn, but you're still only getting one reaction. You're still limited to the just single d10. If this was proficiency bonus d10s, it'd be really busted in the early game, but it would actually feel pretty useful in the later game. Where it is now, you probably, again, I would say around 10th, 11th levels where you're going to start feeling like encounters are so dynamic and have such high numbers that even when this is working, it's not that impressive. At levels like 1 through 5, though, blocking 8 to 12 damage feels gigantic. It feels like you're saving somebody's life routinely over and over again. It can lead to, again, if you're the 22 AC paladin and you're DM's directive to get around that is just kill everyone else before you, they're going to have a way harder time doing that if you're just like not interception, making everyone unable to hit anything else, which makes it pretty miserable for monsters to try and get through a bulwark, which I think is a really cool fantasy. I like that this extends out the utility of having a high AC character by giving people a harder decision, a worse decision to make overall. That's where I think it's going to be great. And then you're going to start seeing things dishing out 60-10 damage, and you're like, all right, I don't really think this is like, it's 60-10 over 2 attacks. I don't think this is doing anything impactful anymore whenever you're only blocking a d10 damage at that tier.
Yeah, but that said, to get to the higher tiers, you need to survive the lower ones first, and
That's true.
this can go a long way. Because I'm thinking D10 was a plus proficiency bonus. I mean, a lot of these attacks are going to land like 0 damage. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Turning longbow shots into nothings, great, super useful. This protects concentration by reducing damage to 0. That's pretty cool.
That's something else I was thinking. Frontline characters be damned. You just go stand next to the wizard.
And you can use your longbow while doing this, right? So maybe you are a fighter that takes interception.
That's true.
And you're just like, I'm going to sit next to the backline wizards. No one's taking this haste away from me. And then you're just firing off arrows like crazy and blocking anything shooting at the wizard. And that's pretty cute. It's not that effective, right? You're not going to be using interception most rounds then, and that's not really where you want to be with your fighting styles.
Unless you're playing a wizard, long range. Come with me. We'll go to the front lines.
So we talk a lot about, in varying videos, about not building characters as individuals, but building characters as part of a team, right? As picking features with the intention of being side by side someone else, right? Thorn Whip as a cantrip that we talked about in context of other characters is a lot more impressive than it is individually, right? There are a lot of features like that in this game. I think Interception's a really big one. Interception, if you want to create a cohesive unit, cohesive team, having a fighter with interception alongside frontline wizards with big concentration effects, alongside frontline druids, alongside frontline clerics that are trying to maintain big concentration effects, interception helps maintain that in a pretty interesting way. And that's, I think, something that should be considered whenever you're going into making a cohesive unit. Feeling like you're a coordinated team that has a group game plan, that your interactions and effects affect everyone else's, that'll help everyone feel more than the sum of their parts. That'll make everyone feel like they're part of this super elite fighting squad, as opposed to this ragtag group of random people that have nothing to do with each other that happen to be adventuring together, which is 95%
99% of games, yeah.
Yeah. I haven't even considered what the rest of this party is doing. I've heard no one has healing magic, so I put healing word on my bard, and I'm otherwise doing exactly what I want to do. Everyone else's build to be damned.
And I'll admit I usually play that way.
Yeah, I've just played in a one shot with my friends, and I didn't ever ask what anyone else was building. I'm like, I've been playing a lot of Have a Nice Death recently. I've been playing a lot of the really grim necromancer fantasy stuff. So I don't want to play a Death Domain halfling. That's whole deal is that he's a ghostwise halfling that saw death and got sucked into the corporation as to how to deal in bargaining with souls. And he's a very much like your average 40-year-old guy at a cubicle desk job, but his cubicle desk job is either killing people or keeping people alive, and treats it as such, right? He talks to ghosts like he's around the water cooler. Really fun character. That concept is what I ran with. I didn't give a shit about anyone else at the table and what they were doing, what their vibe was, what their character archetype was. And we had a lot of fun. We had a great time playing D&D, but none of my features reflect something like Interception. None of my features reflect building towards a cohesive group identity. And I think there's going to be rooms and tables. I think if your goal is to go long term, I would really recommend trying to work out everyone coming together to come up with pitches for a team cohesive first. If you're going for a long-term campaign, something like fighting styles like Interception really ask you to do that to get the most out of them, and it can be really rewarding when they do come together. It just doesn't happen.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's something great if you're planning toward it, but I don't know. I think you could get a lot of use out of this, even if you want to be the protecting fighter or paladin, and you haven't asked anybody else what they're doing. I think you can use this. I mean, there'll be some marshals. There'll be and like we said before, you can always protect the wizard's concentration.
Sure. So
but
we haven't touched on
you chase somebody around and go fight the same monsters.
We haven't touched on protection at all, which is, I think, a very apt, like, comparable feature to this. And protection is, it imposes disadvantage on attack roll, which means it can help things outright miss, which is better in the upper tiers and worse in the lower tiers, right? Being able to mitigate all damage when you know it matters is way more helpful in the low tiers, whereas being able to mitigate all damage in the upper tiers that otherwise would only be reduced by a d10 plus 2, that's really a lot better. So protection scales better, interception is better in the early tiers outright.
Yeah.
I think that more often than not, if I'm playing the protector, I'd rather have protection, especially if I know I'm intending to play 5, 7, 10 levels. If I know this is going to be an arc where we're starting at 3 and ending at 11, I probably want the option that scales better. It's close at that tier, but if you're going for a 20 level campaign, I don't think it is. I think protection is just probably where you want to be if you want to play that protector fantasy.
And protection is the one where you have to have a shield.
Yes, that does require you have a shield. So if you want to be the protector and also don't want to have to wield a shield, which is weird, but you could do that, interception is definitely more up your alley.
You look like you're saying something else. Yes.
So you had the point that was people can probably get value out of this if there isn't coordination, if there is just you pick this up on a character, you want to be defensive. I think that you will have to bend over backwards to get use out of it more often than you'd like in ways that will put you in positions that are disadvantageous. Whereas if you're going into an average group and you have no idea what everyone else's classes are, and you have no idea their tactics or if they're tactically minded at all as far as like figuring out how to engage with their allies, not even just on their own, not even figuring out just their own character sheet works. That is already an order that some people don't necessarily fulfill. But then also saying, I have to care about what other characters at my table are doing, that is a very small subset of people, and Interception really needs, even if we're at the random tables, that subset of people to be happening. So I don't think that, because otherwise, like you said, you're chasing somebody around, and that's going to be wasting actions, being in inefficient places, putting yourself as a character not necessarily where you want to be.
You're chasing them presumably toward a target.
Sometimes
otherwise, they don't need interception.
Yeah, and then you're not using any feature whatsoever, right? Sometimes you're going to want to go and lock down a big threat, and someone's gonna have a different opinion as to what they should be doing and run over to try and tear down the chandelier that's not like taking out the ropes to drop the thing from the ceiling, and that person isn't engaging with a hostile monster, and you're just sat there saying, I have to be the one that's defending the whole team right now, I'm gonna engage the monster head on, and now you don't have a fighting style because interception doesn't do anything for you whenever you're the only one taking on this threat. It really needs you to have multiple allies that want to be in the frontline threatening area, and that is going to require a lot of either A, coordination with your monks and whatnot, coordination with your rogues, and B, it's going to require you have those other members, those other frontline characters. You have to have frontline clerics, you have to have frontline monks. Pardon. And that's not given. So I think this isn't something I would necessarily recommend going in blind with, but if you know you're going to be with other fighters, if you know you're going to be with other clerics or paladins or monks or barbarians, then I think it's a lot more safe. But if you're going in with no idea what the rest of the party's doing, I have a really hard time telling people that interception's a safe bet. I would point them more towards protection, but even then, that isn't necessarily a given either. So,
on the flip side, though, if you're going in to a party full of like new players or people you haven't played with before, and nobody knows what anybody else is doing, taking this could score you some points.
Absolutely.
Hey, surprise, you're not taking any damage this round.
It's also, that's a really great point. It also really helps that if you are an experienced player going to play with a bunch of new players, interception isn't overtly going to make you the center of attention all the time. It's not going to be I'm taking this to do an ass load of damage. I'm taking this to, one-shot things, to crit things down from existence. It's something you very much take to be a team player. And having that to highlight other people's, definitely not necessarily optimized, but like their first time experiencing D&D, whenever they're trying out firing around with cantrips, they're messing around with attacking with a D6 -1 longswords because they're a wizard and didn't recognize, like, oh crap, I didn't realize I couldn't use this, but I want to anyway. You having a sort of a safety valve to say, you would have died otherwise, but it's okay. I got your back. I'm here. I'm going to play some Interception. Now, don't use the longsword anymore. Put it down and start firing firebolts, please. That is going to be probably a helpful experience that will lead to some less feel bads in the early tiers of people getting utterly dumpstered by random crits and things. It can be a helpful tool to have as sort of like a guiding older, more experienced player, sort of playing defense for their group while also still having more than enough of an understanding to function competently in combat. You don't need it. I would say if you go into combat with a +3 to the modifier you're attacking with and a D6 or higher weapon, you're probably doing fine, and you can do that without any of the extra stuff for first level play. So I think you can probably use this really effectively at tables with newer players as a more experienced player.
Any opinion on whether this works better for fighter or paladin? Feels kind of the same to me.
Yeah. I like that the range utility of it is cute, and I like that is an application for fighters. I don't think it's good, but it's cute. So I guarantee you the next ranged fighter that I ever build is taking this over archery every single time because I'm bored of archery and I like having more options. It's worse. I'm not going to tell you it's better. It's worse, but it's fun, and that's super cute. But I think Paladins tend to like this fantasy more. Paladins also tend to get aura effects that care about players being around you that ask you to be in fireball formation.
Well, that's a good point.
Big upside for Interception, right, is you are going to get less punished for having people in a group because the Paladin wants people to be grouped together. That's useful. Fighters don't really have much that does that. There's a couple like bolstering aura and stuff that you can get in Battle Master, stuff that you can get in Purple Dragon Knight to give you some reasons to care about people being somewhat around you, but it's mostly loaded into Paladin. That's the class that's probably going to get technically more mileage out of this, but it's going to be close regardless.
Oh, that reminds me. Any feats that synergize well with this, asking you to be close to other people?
None jump to mind. This feature is weird because it wants people other than you to be attacked. So this does kind of want to go on builds that either your AC is so high you can't be hit and they're trying to prioritize other things, or you're trying to not get hit and get someone else to take the damage, like a barbarian or something, in which case that's like a more of a skirmisher fighter option. I'm envisioning this on like a taunting, you have like a taunting paladin to your right and you're a fighter to the left with a 2d6 greatsword and you're like playing defense for the paladin a little bit. That could be where you're at. And what feats support those specific identities? Like you could take Heavy Armor or Heavy Armor Master on either of these builds to reduce your incoming damage as well by a flat 3. That could be fine. It means no matter how things attack, you're reducing incoming damage. That's pretty cute. Beyond that, I don't see a lot of overlap with feats that support this Interception sort of play style. There aren't a lot of feats that care tremendously about the area around you. So,
all right, how about this? 2 characters have this fighting style.
That's really
just
cute.
Hang out together.
Yeah, you got the fighter and the paladin back to back, and they're like, "No one is hitting either of us. Let's do this thing." And they just run in and like block. That seems really fun. I would love to play that dynamic duo.
Yeah. All right. Well, we talked quite a bit about Interception.
I think it's really cool. I like it a lot. It's not that great, but I like it a lot.
All right, you got a rating for it?
I'm gonna give it a 3. That might be generous, but it's, I think, serviceable at tables that will have at least 2 or more other frontline allies. If you don't have that, you can't really take it consistently. So either you have to like have planned ahead with the group, or okay, we got a monk and a cleric that wants to be in the front of things. I can play this on my fighter or paladin and it'll be fine. It's not going to break the game in half. It's pretty solid in the early tiers. It does get a lot worse as the game progresses. These are all things to consider whenever you're taking it. Competing with protections is a little bit of a bummer to me, but it's still a nice extra option to have that will put on my own character sheets. I don't know if other people will, but if this kind of idea appeals to you, go for it.
I'm going to give it a 3 and not feel overly generous. I think 3 is fine. I think even if you're not coordinated, I think you're going to find you're surprised at how often you're able to use this. And compared to some other fighting styles we've looked at, I think you're going to get your money's worth.
One thing I will say in its favor, it's a new thing to do with your reaction, and that's always going to be good.
Yeah. Why did I not think of that? I was thinking about that before we started the video, but yes.
Just
Because
having more things to use your
other?
reaction on is meaningful.
I mean, there's opportunity attacks, but
that's it.
fighters and paladins. Paladins get any reaction spells at least? Or?
Off the top of my head, that are impactful. I think it's. I know Rangers get absorb elements. I don't know if Paladins also get absorb elements. That's a pretty decent one, but it's fairly niche. If you can get access to shield on either of those classes, it tends to be really good. So like Eldritch Knights get shield, that's pretty good. But for the most part, you're making attacks with opportunity as your bonus or as your reactions, and this is a way. So like Sentinel builds get a lot of those because things come into range and you stab them, right? This is a way to give yourself other actual ways to consistently use your reaction round to round, and that's big.
Yeah.
Using unused actions in combat is powerful. So
yeah. All right, that was Interception. Thank you, Sam, and thank you everyone for joining us. Let us know what you think down in the comments, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, informative, or entertaining, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button below. You needn't smash it. A gentle tap will suffice. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. And make sure you check out the links in the description where you'll find my Caverns and Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels, Sam's full review of the spell, and other fun things.